A common question that new Luxem players often ask is, what am I looking for in my initial glimpse of 6? One of the best benefits of playing Serene Fire Luxem is the access to Spirit of Serene Fire. The Glimpse 6 allows us to find all the cards that we want to in the early game that'll help us smooth out our engine and help us to get to level 3 and start resolving our powerful Luxem effects. But the question is, what cards do I want to keep? Do I keep Luxem? Do I not keep Luxem? Do I keep Fogs? When? How? Where? What are the things I'm looking for? So in this video, I'm going to go through a couple of glimpses. I'm going to shuffle my deck here, and I'm going to show you some of the cards that you may be looking for when you are going for a glimpse. Now, I'm going to be shuffling this on the side as I talk. Essentially, the most important card that you could be looking for when you are playing Serene Fire Luxem Zander is Dungeon Guide. It does not matter if you're playing against an aggro matchup, a mid-range matchup, a control matchup. No matter what matchup you're in, you will want to see a Dungeon Guide and you will want to resolve it. We cannot win the game unless we are level 3, which means that we will want to see one Dungeon Guide at the very least every single game. Now, whether or not you want 1 or 2, I would almost always want to say you just want 1. In some matchups you might want 2, but those are very few and far in between. So Dungeon Guide is the main trigger as to how deep do you want to glimpse. If your initial hand has a Dungeon Guide, you can be greedy. You can afford to be greedy depending on your matchup, depending on what you think your opponent might be on. If your opening hand does not have Dungeon Guide, you have to glimpse harder. You have to dig deeper. I play my game differently depending on whether or not I start with a Dungeon Guide. If I start with a Dungeon Guide, I can afford to play a little bit more. I can be a little bit less turbo. I can take my time because I know that as long as I resolve a Dungeon Guide, I will have a +1, and I will be on Luxem a turn earlier than I would have normally been if I just manually materialized. So after you resolve Dungeon Guide, let's think of Dungeon Guide as getting you from 2 to 3. But you also want to get from 1 to 2 efficiently. And for that, you typically want to have some sort of package in order to get there. So traditionally, we have something along the lines of Creative Shock and Fast Cure. If you can resolve a Creative Shock on your opponent's end step and then discard a float like Fast Cure, when you level to 1 on your next turn, you can just eat the Fast Cure and you're essentially leveling for free. You haven't gone any influence down because you've drawn the same number of cards that you spent on Creative Shock. However, you've ditched a Fast Cure for free, which means that you're essentially +1 just by doing this action. So after I see my Dungeon Guide, I might want to see if I can aim for one of these. One like this complete package of a discard card and a float. With the DTR meta, we also have Ral the Abyss and Liminal Guide, and I'll get to those a little bit more in the, as we go. But I want to see something like this. Opening the game with these 3 cards, or something along the lines of these 3 cards, is a very strong start. So let's think of it, Dungeon Guide gets you to 3, Creative Shock, Fast Cure, or the likes get you to 1, but what gets you to 2? Oh, not that one. That doesn't get you to 2. Cards like Juggle Knives, Thieving Cut, and Planted Explosives can get you to 2 efficiently, but the one you're looking for the most is specifically Juggle Knives. In any matchup, you will want to kill your opponent, which means that Juggle Knives will do 1 damage when you play it, and it'll also do another damage when you go to Deft Executor and pick it up. So Juggle Knives by itself represents 2 damage, as long as you're using it to level and then you bring it back with Deft Executor. So I personally really like Juggle Knives. However, in the ally matchup, you will be pressured by a lot of 2-3 allies, and if you can resolve a Thieving Cut, you can essentially reset the board while also leveling efficiently. So how it looks like is, on my first turn, I don't do anything. On their end step, I create a Shock Fast Cure, I go to 1. On my turn, I get a prep counter because I went to 1. I play a Thieving Cut, I clear their board, I draw a card, and then my next turn, I banish the 2 that I paid for Thieving Cut to go to Deft Executor. I bring back Thieving Cut, I play Thieving Cut again, and I clear another one of their units. That's really nice. However, if your opponent stops your Thieving Cut, say they negate the damage with deflecting edge. Say they stop it in any other means. Maybe they fizzle your attack by removing their ally. They reclaim it. As if Thieving Cut does not hit, you do not get the draw. And if you don't get the draw, you're actually going influence negative now. Juggle Knives is always influence neutral. Thieving Cut can be influence negative if you get interacted with. But if you know your opponent doesn't have, or you call that your opponent doesn't have interaction, if you resolve a Thieving Cut and you get a draw off of it, it feels amazing. It's just Juggle Knives are better in that case. However, it's a little bit risky. Planted Explosives is not risky because you are always going to go influence negative with this. Unless you're already level 3 and you have Insignia, resolving a Planted Explosive means that you're permanently down 1 card in your hand because you use something that you're not getting back. You can bring it back with a level 2, which is nice, but you've definitely gone negative. However, it is a necessary evil sometimes. Because if your opponent has, say, for example, a Cheshire Cat, or a Shimmer Cloak Assassin, or something with stealth, you can't Thieving Cut, you can't get rid of it, but Planted Explosives can. If your opponent has a Spell Shroud unit, Planted Explosives can get through that. If your opponent, because it's a skill and not a spell, if your opponent has, say, a Quasi Trapper protecting all of their allies from attacks, you can't get them with Thieving Cut, but Planted Explosives can. Planted Explosives is very reliable. It can clear Arthurs on your opponent's recollection. Say they play an Immortal Arthur. You can't clear that with Thieving Cut, you can't clear that with any allies, you can't do anything on your turn, but you just say, okay, I'll pass. On their turn, Arthur is no longer immortal, you plop down the Planted Explosives and you remove it. So Planted Explosives saves a lot of damage and is a necessary evil against a very aggressive matchup. And again, you can do the same thing. You can pay 2 on your opponent's end step, you can Planted Explosives, not even on the end step, like just to react and stun them for a turn, you get rid of something, you pay the cost, on your turn to get Deft Executor, Planted Explosive back. You may not even play it again. You might just save it for late game. The cool part about Planted Explosives is it also adds to your explosive turns. Sometimes you can Planted Explosives and Light Weaver's Assault. That does 6 damage off the Light Weavers, 4 damage off Planted. That's 10 damage. So you have sneaky 10 damage mid game, late game. You can Planted Explosives once you make it Insignia, and then you can also draw a card in pre-recollection. So Planted Explosive is necessary evil. Thieving Cut is really nice if you can resolve it, but if your opponent is very skilled and you might not be able to resolve it, you want Juggle Knives. So I love Juggle Knives to go to 2. I love Dungeon Die to go to 3. I love Creative Shock and Fast Cure to go to 1. So that being said, what about Luxem? Well, when you're starting off playing Serene Fire Luxem Zander, I would say whenever you see yellow cards, ship them to the bottom. Most likely you are playing a Luxera's map version, in which case you can bring out the map later in the game, you can search for your Light Weaver's Assault, and then you can reset your deck by shuffling it after you resolve the map. Make sure your map does not get factorized, but otherwise, like I would say, when you're starting to learn this deck, do not keep yellow cards. However, if you feel like you are more comfortable with the deck, you kind of know the ins and outs, you can start being greedy. You can start keeping 1 or more of these cards. In addition to Light Weaver's Assault, if you're up against a control matchup, you might actually want to keep Light Weaver's Assault and Gleaming Cut. If you know for a fact they're going to give you a lot of time to get to 3, you might want your level 3 to be more explosive. Sometimes against a matchup like Jin, I might want to keep an Excalibur where I know I will be resolving this late game, and I want to guarantee that I see that against their plate. However, I would say generally, I would only ever keep Light Weaver's Assault or Luxem Sight most of the time. Luxem Sight means that when I hit 3, I stabilize against the aggressive decks. Against an ally deck, sometimes I even keep 2 Luxem Sight if I'm really greedy, because it means that if I draw a 3rd Luxem Sight, I can just level manually, go to 3, and start healing a bajillion every single turn, but that starts getting a little bit messy. So I would say in terms of your glimpse targets, number 1, Dungeon Guide. Number 2, some sort of level efficient package going to 1. Then Juggle Knives. And then if you see all of this, you can either greed for another Creative Shock or Rile discard package, or you can start going into a little bit of the Luxem cards you feel that you want in that matchup. So, all that being said, let's get glimpsing. I'm gonna take all of that, stick it in my deck. I'm gonna mash shuffle a couple of times. I've been mash shuffling on the side a little bit. Typically I like to do eight mash shuffles is enough to randomize a deck. 10 is enough usually. I like to do 8 though because there's time. But let's just start with this. So let's go with our first glimpse. On enter, glimpse 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see what we got. Beautiful. Immediately. Dungeon Guide, Creative Shock, Float. I even have an Assassin neutral card here. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Depending on the matchup, I may or may not keep the Fog and the Incapacitate. If I were to keep either of these, that's okay. I probably would glimpse at least 1 or 2 here, depending on the matchup. But because I'm greedy, I feel like I want to see more of these. Like, what if I draw into a Ryle? What if I draw into a Liminal? That would be crazy. So what I'm going to do, I might keep a Resolute stand because there's a lot of allies right now running around. But I'm greedy, so I'm going to do, let's ship 2 of them. Let's see what we get. So we do get a Liminal, which means that there is a potential that if we find a Ryle the Abyss, we can actually Ryle pitching both. That's a crazy start. We could actually play this depending on how my opponent sets up. If I read that my opponent is a very, very slow deck and they're gonna give me the time and I'm very, very greedy, I might legitimately backup charger first turn just so I can get another card to see if I can hit that Ryle the Abyss. And if I don't, I'm just gonna Creative Shock, pitching a float, and then go to level 1. If I'm under pressure, I will immediately start doing something like this. Bam, bam, go to level 1, go to level 2, and then see if I can eke out some value from Liminal Guide before going to level 3. But if I'm really, really greedy, I'll backup charger and draw into, wow, I did not script this. Yeah, if I backup charger, go into Ryle the Abyss, end my turn, I basically feel like I win the game if my opponent does not pressure me enough. Because what I'm gonna do here is on my opponent's end step, I'm simply gonna pay for Ryle the Abyss, something like this. On your end step, Ryle the Abyss, draw a card. Discarding these 2, draw 2 cards. So I draw 3 cards total. This replaces everything. On my turn, Undying Dreams, go to 1, Liminal Guide, draw a card. Next turn, Juggle Knives, going to 2. Bring back Juggle Knives on Deft Executor, play Juggle Knives again. Turn after, and then immediately go Dungeon Guide, go to 3. Oh yeah, this is a very strong game. So I think that was kind of a high roll. Wow, I can't believe these draws. I draw Gleaming Cut too. Those are very good options. So normally I would shuffle these, put them back in the deck. Actually, let's just do that there. I kind of want to show you guys like a bad a bad hand and how you navigate that. But notice, even in that good hand, I could have just chosen to just Creative Shock, discarding a float, which is completely fine. But I like to see what my opponent does. If they're playing a bunch of do-nothings, or if I can see that they're not going to really pressure me, I like to be greedier than them. Because I know that I can take that greed, and I can go faster, I can have more influence, and I can like take the game from there. The worst matchup is someone that pressures you early and forces you to lose value on your cards. All right, let's do another one here. So, spin up Serene Fire as enter glimpse 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What do we got? No Dungeon Guide this time. However, we have some really good cards here. So, Thieving Cut and Planted Explosives means this gets me to 2. There's an argument here I keep an Incapacitate so that I can incap their Ryle the Abyss, and then I can Deft Executor bring back incap. However, around my local meta at least, I know I have a lot of allies, so I probably will keep a Thieving Cut. So between Creative Shock and Ryle the Abyss, which one do I want to keep? And if so, do I keep more? Now, the question is, do I have Dungeon Guide? I don't have Dungeon Guide, which means the more glimpse, the better. So right now in this position, I would not keep both of them. I will, however, keep one of them. And right now, because I know that half of my float can be discarded off Ryle, and I'm a little bit of a greedy player, I will probably end up keeping something like Thieving Cut to get to 2, Rile in hopes of getting my float or my liminal. Because the thing is, like, if I get a liminal, I can pay 3 useless cards, Well the Abyss, draw a card, discard a liminal, draw another card, and then banish one of my 3 cards. It's not that bad. You don't have to use float. But then also the liminal will give you a card anyway, so it's almost as if you did use float. And that's why even though I have fast kills in this deck, I'll probably keep the Ral over the Creative Shock. I don't want the Striking Illuminance right now. It's way too early for that. I'm choosing either or Thieving Cut or Plant Explosive. So goodbye these 4 cards. They go to the bottom. What do I got? Give me a Dungeon Guide. Ooh, there we go. This crazy. Well the Abyss, Liminal, Undying, perfect level 1. Thieving Cut, Juggle Knives, perfect level 2. If I draw a Dungeon Guide off this, or this, so the next 4 draws, I'm basically in a position to win the game right here. Let's take a look. No Dungeon Guide. No Dungeon Guide. No. So no Dungeon Guide here, but if I were to resolve Well the Abyss, discarding Undying and Liminal, Undying, going to level 1, probably glimpsing away some of these Luxem cards, Liminal, drawing a card, even if I were to play the game as is, it's pretty good. Because what I could do here is I could potentially gain enough influence to go to 3 manually, and then in response to Zander's effect, I can just Excalibur a threat, putting Gleaming Cut in my memory, so when Zander 3 resolves, I can just draw 2 off Gleaming Cut, and we're off to the races. And oh yeah, that's a winning hand. I kind of don't want to show you guys any more good hands. I'm gonna cheat a little bit here, take these good cards and put them at the bottom of my deck. Never do this, always mass shuffle, but for the purpose of this video, let's glimpse 6. I'm hoping to get a really bad hand to kind of see what we should do here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, this is a really awkward hand, and that's kind of what I want to see. Okay, is it really that awkward? It's not that awkward. That's a turn 1 play. These are 2 separate turns of play. This allows me to go to level 1 efficiently. This allows me to level at any point efficiently. In fact, I might even be able to chain something so I can Creative Shock first and then Ral the Abyss. Like, actually, can I do that? Now that I think about it. Let's see. On my opponent's end step, no, I don't have enough cards in hand to be able to do both. But let's see. In this position, I'm willing to give up my 2 fogs because I know I'm leveling efficiently no matter what. I want to see if I can hit a Dungeon Guide. So let's see. Give away my 2 fogs. 1, 2. Yeah, this is crazy. Well the Abyss, Liminal, Undying. I'm leveling efficiently. This is a crazy high roll. My opponent must censor me here. They must censor me here, or I just run away with the game. I'll Rile, Liminal, Undying, get a free card off after I glimpse 2. Then after that, I'll Creative Shock fast here, going to 2, maybe pitching a Juggle Knives that I potentially can get to get that back. Yeah, this is a crazy hand. I now know that I've seen most of my Riles just off these 2 good hands that, again, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to put them at the bottom. So my next few hands are probably going to be worse, but also I might get a Dungeon Guide. I'm just going to glimpse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ooh, awkward. I love this. So here I have a Liminal and an Undying, and I have no way to really play them. There is an argument that against a hyper aggro matchup, I can literally just play the Liminal, have it die, and when it comes back, when I eventually level, I can Undying Dreams it, and then start clearing board. But I feel like that's reserved for a hyper aggro, I want to play for a board matchup. So I probably won't do that. A second float is really awkward here, but these are the cards I really do like. Turbocharge, Juggle Knives, Light Weavers. Because what this means is instead of hyper focusing on these cards, I can just say, okay, I'm going to backup Charger, draw 1 into memory, Turbocharge, draw 2, and suddenly, even though I don't have a Dungeon Guide right now, I will probably have a good chance of finding a Dungeon Guide or something along that line. Juggle Knives ensures I can level to 2 efficiently. And if I'm greedy, Light Weavers means I can go on the offense as soon as I hit 3. So, oh, this is a little bit rough. So, I will not keep the fast cure, for sure, because I have Undying Dreams. The question is, do I keep Liminal Undying Dreams here? It's kind of a rough one. So we know for a fact I probably want to keep these. I like being able to have a super powerful off turn. I like being able to go to 2. To what extent do I want these? Nowadays, I feel very comfortable keeping 1 Luxem in hand. For my playstyle, I'll probably end up keeping this because the worst case scenario is I draw more Luxem. But if I draw more Luxem, I have Lightweaver's Assault, which is crazy. So I probably will do this. Do I do this? Do I keep these 2? Well, I probably keep this one at the very least because this is a creative target. This is a wild target. And the thing is, if I keep both of these, I'm now super weak to Censor. Let's say my opponent is going to do Censor and then start whacking me with a bunch of allies and spell damage. With a hand like this, I got draw, like nothing. I will literally roll over and die if I keep this hand as is and I don't draw anything useful. I think keeping these 2 is correct if you feel like you are in a high roll matchup. Like, hey, I want to make sure that I get the maximum value out of my cards. I'll keep both of these. But if I don't know what my opponent's running, I think what I'll end up doing is I'm going to ship these 2 to the bottom and I'm going to draw 2, hopefully draw Creative Shock or a Rile. And then that gets me to 1, that gets me to 2. Off turn, drawing like a billion cards, drawing 1 off backup charger, but drawing 2 off turbo charge, I'll have enough to manually go to 3 and start playing the game. That's a good battle plan. Let's do that. All right, 2 to the bottom. Let's see. 2 cards. What do I get? Interesting. So what this means is we are extremely weak early game, and we will immediately pop off late game. So what this will look like is what I will probably end my turn on my opponent's end step. I'll see what it's like. If they are playing a hyper aggressive game, I might just play an Undying Dreams, go to my turn, banish, go to 2, and then from there I could decide if I want to Juggle Knives immediately to dig deeper, or if I want to save the Juggle Knives so that I can actually level to 2 efficiently. It depends on how aggressive they are. If they are not aggressive, I will probably end up using backup charger, drawing 1 into memory, and then turbo charging to draw 2 as well. That's probably the line I would like to play, because the second I hit 3, I'm simply going to slam and uncover the plot, putting these 2 down, healing and killing something, or I could just hold, I could start holding cards. But this is not bad. Let's say I did 1 off turn. So this is an off turn game. I took an off turn. I did a backup charger. I'm going to probably draw off turbo charge. My new cards accessible to me this game are, yeah, this is good. What this tells me is I am going to struggle to hit 3 because I don't have I don't have a liminal engine. I don't have a good shock, creative shock discarding float. But I am able to take advantage of Deft Executor, bringing Juggle Knives back. I am able to protect myself against the big spell Wombo combo Arcane Blast Fireball decks a little bit. I can fend that off and incapacitate. Against the ally decks, I can live for 1 turn for sure with Resolute Stand. So I do have the opportunity to take an off turn and potentially survive. The thing is, if my opponent lets me live, I will destroy them. Because once you have Lightweaver's Assault, you can start immediately clearing board. You can start immediately dealing 4 damage worth every single turn. And once you have 8 cards, 10 cards, like, I can simply just uncover Lightweaver's Assault, deal 4 to my opponent, uncover the plot, deal another 4 to my opponent, put a lot of pressure on, and I don't even need to do a full double Lightweaver's combo. If I can just wear them down with enough resolutions of this, I could just simply go something like Juggle Knives Lightweavers or whatever I draw into Lightweavers, deal 6-7 damage, close out the game. This is very nice for a control matchup. I feel very threatened by allies and aggro here, so I might just lose the game if my opponent's just going to kill me on turn 3. It is what it is. I think that the most we could have done this game is say we shipped an additional Lightweaver's Assault to see another card. It's still not making a difference here because the fast Q is not really going to save us against a turn 3 kill. we're still gonna die. So I think it was probably a correct decision to keep that Light Weaver's Assault, because it means that if we're able to live, they will die. So I kind of like that decision-making process. If you disagree with my glimpses, please let me know. I am still learning actively a lot of the time, especially with the wild package. There's a lot to learn. So let me know what you think of my glimpses. Let me know what you would have glimpsed. And hopefully this is a good insight for newer players as to what you want to keep, what you might not want to keep in Luxem. Have a good day. This is One Trick Luxem. I'll see you next time.